Breaking, Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen announced a new state prison will be built in Lincoln next year. The facility will replace Nebraska's current state penitentiary.
During the announcement today, Pillen said parts of the current facility date back more than 150 years. The new building will be located just northeast of Lincoln. Pillen said the location was chosen with the prisoners in mind.
History has helped us understand the incredible need to make sure that those who are incarcerated are located in a place that's located as close as possible to their families.
Pillen said families can make a positive impact on rehab for prisoners. He also noted that 60% of incarcerated people in Nebraska are released within 3 years. The facility will cost the state $335 million.